Hope you're having a wonderful day. We're going to start out our next concept. Here's everything we've done so far: graphing inequalities and situations, 1- and 2-step inequalities, multiple-step inequalities, some real-world applications with inequalities, and finally, well, not finally, but we're going to get into absolute value equations, and then that's going to lead into using inequalities with absolute values. But first, we want to introduce what absolute value actually is. So today, we can be successful if we can independently solve equations with absolute value. We're going to solve equations with absolute value. So what is absolute value? Well, absolute value is the distance between a number and 0 on a number line. Okay? Number and 0, and it's the distance. What's fun about absolute value is that there are no negative numbers in absolute value answers. For symbols, the way you're going to see absolute value symbols is you're going to have either two vertical lines with a number in between, or sometimes you might see it look like that, two slanted lines with a number in between, something like that. The words you're going to read are the absolute value of, and you'll get a number there. So like the absolute value of 3, the absolute value of -5, something like that. So you might see it where it looks like this, where that's just the absolute value of 3. How far is 3 from 0? Well, if I go here, how far do I have to go to 0? 1, 2, 3. So the absolute value of 3 is just 3. Or you might see the absolute value of 5. Well, how far is 5 from 0? Well, let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's 5 away from 0. You might also see the absolute value of a negative number. The absolute value of -2. Well, -2 is here. How far away from 0 is -2? 1, 2 jumps away. So the absolute value of -2 is just 2. So if you notice, the absolute value of a positive number is a positive number. The absolute value of a positive number is a positive number. The absolute value of a negative number is a positive number. Like I said before, in absolute value, your answers can never be negative. They'll always be positive. Let's check some examples out here. Forgive me on that. We have the absolute value of -9 plus the absolute value of -5. Well, how far is -9 away from 0? It's 9 away from 0. The absolute value of -9 is just 9. Plus the absolute value of -5 is 5. 9 plus 5 is just 14. And that's your answer. That's how absolute value works. You find out how far away is that number from 0, and then you just solve. So the absolute value of -10 is 10. It's 10 away from 0. Divided by 2 times the absolute value of 5 is 5. And I got to do PEMDAS. What are you going to do first? I'm going to do multiplication first, division first. Well, in PEMDAS, division and multiplication are equal, so we just work left to right. 10 divided by 2 is, hopefully you know, it's 5. 5 times 5 is 25. And that's it. That's all it is. You're so smart. You can do it. Well, now let's add it into some equations with variables. We have the absolute value of x plus 3 equals 10. It's not the absolute value of 3. It's not the absolute value of x. It's the absolute value of x plus 3. And that equals 10. Well, when I have an absolute value, let's look over here really quick. If I have the absolute value of 10, that equals, how far is 10 away from 0? Or, yep, you're going to have 10. How far is -10 away from 0? Well, that's also 10. So when you have this answer here, the absolute value of x plus 3, it could be two things. It could be positive 10 or -10. So we want to find out what the absolute value of x plus 3 could be, positive or -10. So you could have potentially two different answers. That's why I have two sides here. We're going to figure out both of them. We're going to figure it out when it's 10 and when it's -10. So we want to know when x plus 3 equals 10, and we also want to know when x plus 3 equals negative 10, because it could be either one. So let's solve. We subtract 3 to both sides. We're left with x equals 7. So when x is 10, or x plus 3 is 10, x is 7. 7 plus 3 equals 10. Well, what about when x plus 3 is negative 10? We do the same thing. We subtract 3 to both sides. However, negative 10 minus 3 is negative 13. So I could have two different answers. X is equal to 7 or x is equal to negative 13. Could be either one. Either one of these numbers, 7, makes this true. 7 plus 3 is 10. Absolute value of 10 is 10. Or negative 13. Negative 13 plus 3 is 10, negative 10, and the absolute value of negative 10 is still 10. That's why we have to do it 2 times. Same thing here. We want x minus 5 to equal 3. The absolute value of 3 is 3. The absolute value of negative 3 also equals 3. So we want x minus 5 to equal 3, or x minus 5 to equal negative 3. Let's solve. Well, what minus 5 equals 3? To figure that out, we have to add 5 to both sides, and we get that x is equal to 8. Well, let's check it. 8 minus 5. 8 minus 5 is 3. The absolute value of 3 is 3. We found that out. Good job. Let's try over here. We're going to add 5 to both sides. X is the same as negative 3 plus 5 is 2. Let's put 2 in here. 2 minus 5 is negative 3. The absolute value of negative 3 is 3. So either one of those will satisfy this equation and make it true. If you plug in either 8 or 2, you will get a right solution. All right, well, we got a little one, more than one step here. We need 3 times the absolute value of n minus 6, which equals 12. Well, first thing we need to do is get rid of this 3, because we need to figure out what this goes in here. So to get rid of that 3, we have to divide both sides by 3. Let's do that first. Those cancel, and we are left with n minus 6, and that's the absolute value of n minus 6, is the same as 12 divided by 3 is 4. Not too bad. So we need to figure out the absolute value of n minus 6 has to be either 4 or negative 4. Because both of those answers, the absolute value of 4 is 4, the absolute value of negative 4 is also 4. So let's try to solve that. N minus 6 has to equal 4. And n minus 6 has to equal negative 4. With both of those, we will figure out what our value of n will be. So let's do the first one. Get rid of this negative 6. We have to add 6 to both sides. And we're left with n is the same as 4 plus 6 is 10. And we're done. Over here, do the same thing. We're adding 6 to both sides to get rid of the negative 6. We're left with n is the same as negative 4 plus 6 is 2. Well, let's check it back in the original equation here. Okay, we have 3 times the absolute value, and we said on this side that n was 2 minus 6 is the same as 12. Well, we have to do inside the absolute value first. 3 times the absolute value. What's 2 minus 6? Well, it's negative 4, and that equals 12. 3, what is the absolute value of negative 4? Well, we said the absolute value of negative 4 is positive 4, so 3 times 4 equals 12. Does 3 times 4 equal 12? 12 equals 12. Prove that it works. Let's check the other side. We said that n equals 10, so we're going to say 3 times the absolute value of 10 minus 6 equals 12. 3 times, what is 10 minus 6? 10 minus 6 is 4. And that's the absolute value of 4. So then 3 times the absolute value of 4 is 4. It's 4 away from 0. 3 times 4 is 12. Does 12 equal 12? Yes, it does. We proved it for both sides. N could be 10, or N can be 2. Could be one or the other. Don't forget, anytime you need to pause, to go back, take a break, don't forget you can do that. All right, let's go quick here. X plus 10 equals 7. We know that it could be either positive 7 or negative 7 because we have the absolute value of both of those equals 7. All right, so x plus 10 equals 7 or x plus 10 equals negative 7. Okay. See if you can do this without me. Pause the video, go through a couple of these on your own. See if you can do it by yourself. We're going to subtract 10 to both sides. We get x is the same as 7 minus 10 is negative 3. Over here, we're going to subtract 10 from both sides. X is the same as negative 17. Awesome job. Let's try our next one. Hey, we said if this is outside first, we need to divide everything by 2. Okay, so we're left with absolute value of n minus 8 is the same as 6. And that's positive or negative 6. So we get n minus, n minus 8 equals 6. And n minus 8 equals negative 6. Add 8 to both sides. We're going to get the n by itself. 6 plus 8 is 14. And we're going to add 8 to both sides over here. We're left with n is the same as negative 6 plus 8 is 2. Fantastic. All right, let's look at our next one. We got a positive 10 outside of our absolute value. Let's get our absolute value by itself. First thing you want to do is subtract 10 to both sides. And you're left with the absolute value of x plus 4 is the same as 4 minus 10. Looks like 16, sorry. 4 minus 10 is negative 6. Let's change this to 14 minus 10 because we can't really work with a negative number because you can't have an absolute value equally negative. And negative, let's go 14 minus 10. Forgive that, I think I forgot that 1 there. 14 minus 10 is going to be a positive 4. There we go. That works a little bit better. Over here, we have x plus 4 equals 4. Remember, this could be a positive or negative 4. And x plus 4 equals negative 4. Subtract 4 to both sides on both equations. We're going to get x equals 0 and x equals negative 8. Both of those make this original equation true. And same thing on our next one. Let's change this instead of 6. Let's. I think my 1's got erased when I copied this over. Let's make that into a 16. That's going to make this a lot easier. We've got to get rid of this 12 outside the absolute value. We're going to get the absolute value of x plus 3 is the same as 16 minus 12 is 4. Okay, again, that could be a positive or negative 4. Absolute value. We have x plus 3 equals 4. And x plus 3 equals negative 4. We're going to subtract 3 on both equations to both sides. X is the same as 4 minus 3 is 1. X is the same as negative 4 minus 3 is negative 7. Pretty good. Last couple here. This is just solving the equation, no variables. All you're doing is just figuring out what your answers are. Well, the absolute value of -8 is 8. We are 8 away from 0. Plus the absolute value of 5 is 5 away from 0. 8 plus 5 is 13. Hopefully those come super easy to you. Absolute value of 12, 12 away from 0. Minus the absolute value of -3 is 3 away from 0, which is 12 minus 3 is 9. That's all it is. Absolute value, how far away you are from 0, the distance between a number and 0 on a number line. Again, the absolute value of a positive is a positive. The absolute value of a negative is always a positive. Okay? Put some comments down there if you have any questions. Send me a message if you want some extra help. Have a great day. I hope this helped learn a little bit about absolute